Episode 11, Our Beginning, How the Romance Started. Welcome back to One Extraordinary Marriage, where we talk about life, love, and the pursuit of intimacy. You're here with Alisa DiLorenzo.
And Tony DiLorenzo.
We'll be talking today about how we met, what first attracted us to one another in our courtship.
That's right.
Little trip down memory lane, and we hope it encourages you as you listen to us to take a similar stroll with your spouse, remembering how you guys got started and what it was like in the beginning when everything was exciting and new. It's been a better week for us.
It has. There's been some ups and downs though this week.
There have been.
I got my heart broken by Abby.
It was bad.
It was. You want to tell everybody what happened?
Well, Abby's preschool does a Dads and Donuts little get together for the dads once a year. And last year, we thought Abby was going to let Tony take her, and they get all the way to the preschool, and she absolutely refuses.
Oh, she was in a fit. I had to call you.
You called me. That's right. I thought I was getting the morning off, and I suddenly get this phone call. You have to come and get Abby. She won't even let me take her into the classroom.
Yep.
So that was last year.
And this year we were doing really well. We got all the way to Friday morning.
Friday morning, 8:25. She goes to school at 9. And at 8:25, she comes and finds me in the bathroom and says, I don't want Daddy to take me to school. And I said, being the great mother that I am, I'm like, well, fine, you have to go tell him. I'm not telling your dad you don't want him to take you to school. And so she told you, and you said what?
I told her I was very disappointed. And I was. I was really heartbroken. I was hurting, and wow, that was such a blow to my daddy ego when she didn't want me to take her, and she's just looking at me with these eyes, and I just let her know I was disappointed, and then she just, as you heard, the screams and the hollers of how bad of a dad I am because
you hurt her feelings.
Well, she hurt mine.
I know, but she's learning to use her words, and so you made her sad.
I know. Well, she made me sad too, and that stuck with me all day Friday.
Yeah.
And I just, the one thing I just remembered about that was from years ago with the way I would talk to you and the way I would look at you, and that same sort of reaction I would get from you when I would talk like that.
Mm-hmm.
And how I don't use that much anymore in our marriage. I know it still comes out, but just as I was going through the day, I just realized how much my words and how much even the way I just looked at her just set her off.
Yeah, you broke her heart in return for breaking yours.
Yeah.
And she's 4.
I know. I felt bad.
Okay.
I did feel bad for her, but I felt bad for myself too.
Well, and I understand. And the moms and I at preschool were talking about you.
I'm glad they're all talking about me.
There weren't a lot of moms that day. So there was just, one good friend and I were talking, and she even asked, she's like, is Tony pouting today? And I said, a little bit. He's a little sad. He got rejected by his daughter. And she said to me, she goes, he remembers that she's 4, right? And that preschool is really the place where you are, because she's seen you with Abby at preschool before, and it's never a really positive experience.
Yeah, there's something about Abby. She just doesn't like me going to her school.
You do not fit into her school profile.
I don't.
And so, it's hard for her to accept you being there. And so apparently she just decided to reject you flat out and say, you're not going.
Yep.
Which made for a tough Friday morning.
Yep, it did.
Are you better?
Oh, I'm all better. Yeah.
Okay.
I forgot about it.
Just check. Well, you just brought it up. You didn't forget about it.
Well, I forgot about the whole getting hurt
okay
part. Sure, I'm not going to forget about it.
You going to be okay?
I am.
All right. Anything else you want to talk about with this week?
What else happened this week?
We were doing better.
We were doing much better. Last night we had that little spat.
You were irritated with technology.
I was. And then I was irritated with you telling me at 10:30 that you're going over to a girlfriend's house real quick.
An hour later. I thought it was best that I not be in the house when you were just getting very, very upset. And so I had 2 options.
I know, but it bugs me when I'm getting upset and frustrated with technology, especially when it comes to the website and all the stuff we're doing there, and you have such a hands-off approach.
Tony is all about the backside. Everything.
I understand.
I just want to explain.
I think everybody knows that because we've told them that before. But you have such an offhand approach to it that it gets me frustrated because I want some input from you, and all you do is go, "Oh, yep. Oh, gosh, that must be a bummer, Tony." That.
There was nothing I could do. You were screaming at your computer screen.
I know there was nothing you could do, but to just go, oh, well, I'm going to go to a girlfriend's house doesn't make the situation any better because you're like leaving me now while I'm screaming at the I'm not screaming, but I'm just very frustrated at the software program I was trying to get going.
Okay, but just to clarify, it was work related for my other business. It wasn't like I was going over on a social call at 10:30 at night.
I understand that.
Okay, I want to make that clear to our listeners that I wasn't just like, going over to watch a movie or something. It was work related. It just happened to be a good time for her, and you were not in a good place, and it was either that
I know,
or
but I went to bed upset last night.
Okay.
Not super upset, but I was just sort of irritated. And I had to, just sort of talk to God there last night. I'm like, okay, just pray for her. Just pray for her. Pray for me. Just let it go. I need to forgive her because I did, jump down your throat.
And so the forgiveness of me would be due to
you leaving.
Oh, okay. Okay. I was trying to, that whole, I need to forgive her. Because I left. It was either that or I was going to go into the bedroom and read, and that would have bugged you too.
No, it wouldn't have.
Oh, so not true.
No.
Yes.
Do you think so?
Yes.
No, I don't.
Okay. Well,
because if you're in the bedroom, although it's Saturday night, so we wouldn't have made love.
Saturday's an off night.
Yeah.
It would have bugged you.
No, because if you would have gone to bed, I probably would have turned off the computer and just let it go, and I would have come to bed too. I
don't think so. You were fired up last night.
No.
Okay. You gonna get fired up now?
No, I'm not gonna get fired up now. But I'm just saying I don't think I would have been fired. I think if you would have gone to bed,
okay,
I would have just gone to bed with you. There wouldn't have been any argument. There wouldn't have been any reason for me to be upset at you because you weren't going to go anywhere. Right?
True.
Okay.
I just know that sometimes when I go and read while you're having to work through some of that stuff, it bugs you too.
Sometimes, but I don't think last night would have been one of those nights.
Oh. All right. So and then we had Screaming Child tonight before we recorded.
Yep. We got to just probably do a big old podcast series on kids.
I think we should. And we have lots of material.
Man, I think if anybody out there, listeners, you got questions about kids and marriage and parenting, shoot them our way. Ask Tony at oneextraordinarymarriage.com or
ask Alisa at oneextraordinarymarriage.com.
We should. I think that's one series we need to do because there are many times when I feel like I fail miserably. And then it affects our marriage too and how we're able to romance and be intimate with each other.
Absolutely. Because when you're all fired up and one of us has got our mama bear or papa bear, anxiety or reaction going on, then it's hard to let that adrenaline go down and be like, okay, I love you.
Yeah.
Aren't you sweet?
Yeah.
When, you've got screaming children and discipline issues and things like that. So, and you guys can also give us a call on the listener feedback line at the 858-754-9937 number. If you just want to comment on how, your children impact your marriage or questions that you would like us to address, that's another way to reach us.
Yeah, please leave your comments. We love them, and this week we don't have any, so please send in or call in the listener feedback and leave your comments.
Right, we didn't have any phone-in comments, but we actually had quite a bit of activity on our Facebook fan page.
Right, but one other thing I wanted to go back to for this week was we had an awesome lovemaking session. Again, eyes wide open.
Eyes wide open.
Was that 3 or 4 times?
Number 3.
Number 3?
Mm-hmm.
Getting better?
Getting better.
Okay. Anybody else out there doing it? Anybody? Would like to hear about it?
He actually paused there like he was waiting for somebody to say something, which I find to be rather amusing.
I'm acting like we're live.
You're doing a great job.
Okay.
I was waiting for the response too, and it didn't come.
It's for in those years, in the future when we're live, and I'm going to be talking to folks, and we're talking to folks.
And you're doing that weird hand thing where you're like reaching out to the crowd.
Well, people can't see that right now.
But as I was saying, we did have a great
We did.
Feedback on our Facebook fan page. We post that Friday Facebook question. And this week it was, if you were to write one golden rule for a happy, healthy marriage, what would it be? And we actually ended up with what, like 16 or 17 comments?
I think, yeah.
On this, and just some really great feedback, things that I wish that we had known early on. From Andy Traub, we had, thou shalt never speak the word divorce in your household. That's a very strong comment to make.
Yep.
Because it just takes that completely off the table. And if it's off the table, then you have no choice but to work things out.
Yep.
So Andy, thank you for sharing that. From Ron Mansky, we read, put your spouse ahead of yourself, and when in doubt, try to see things from their perspective before reacting.
Why are you looking at me like that? Because I overreacted on Saturday.
No, I was just looking at you for
You were looking at me like, hey, Tony, did you read this? I read it. I just forgot about it.
Well, and then Sarah Barron says, and she adds to somebody else's comment. She says, don't forget your sense of humor.
Yes.
Which is something that I need to work on, because I tend to get
you're very
uptight.
Yes.
I don't always have a sense of humor.
Yeah, it's diminished over the years. I think Mandy's is a good one as well, where she said never go to bed angry.
Although you did last night.
Upset.
Difference being?
I would say anger is like on a scale of 1 to 100. That's like the 80 to 100. I mean, it's up there.
Okay.
Upset is more in that 40 to 50, maybe 40 to 60 range.
I think you're like splitting hairs here. I'll give it to you, but because I'm just pointing out that whether it was upset or angry, you went to bed with negative emotion last night. Let's put it that way.
Okay. This morning, what we made up after I got back home.
From your bike ride.
Yep.
You relieved some stress.
I relieve it and go.
Thank you, again, there are some wonderful comments on there. We'd love for you guys to, if you haven't already chimed in with your thoughts or comments, would love for you to still do so. There's great discussion, really a sense of community building when you get, we throw a question out there and we get 16, 17 comments. That's fantastic. It's a lot of fun for us. And so those rules that would have been great to probably know back in the early days.
When we first got married?
I'm talking back before then. Well, not so much the divorce word, but just, taking things from another person's perspective and that type of stuff. Because we're traveling back in time to the summer of 1994.
Yep. 1994. It's a long time ago.
It is a long time ago. Gosh, we're going on 16 years.
Of knowing each other.
Yeah. That was kind of one of those God things that we even met. Not that I would have called it a God thing at the time.
Oh, we were far, far away from God at that time.
Right. But in retrospect, I mean, I wasn't even supposed to be there.
True.
It was one of those things where every summer that I was in college, I'd always done research. And then for whatever reason, that last summer that I was going to be in college, I didn't get an internship and had applied for one at the University of Colorado and was actually denied. Or not denied, but they not accepted. You were denied. I was denied. I didn't know I was waitlisted. Well, we didn't get there yet. You were denied. I was denied, and then I went home for the summer, back to Columbus, Ohio, and 3 days before the program was supposed to start, I get this phone call from one of the program coordinators asking me if I wanted to come out and do a neuropsych internship for the summer. And so I had, all of about 30 seconds as I weighed out summer in Columbus, Ohio with my parents or summer on my own in Boulder, Colorado. And as a college student, yeah, you don't want to be hanging with your folks. Let's see. In Columbus, Ohio versus Boulder. Yeah, it was, I was yelling off the phone, hey, can you guys give me a ride to the airport on Thursday? So needless to say, I, got my hiking boots and hopped a plane to Boulder, Colorado. And the internship program had rented out a fraternity house. And that's where I was. And that's where you were. For the summer of 1994. You keep saying that like you can't believe it's been that long. It's been a long time. It's been a long time. Yeah, I was at the fraternity house. I was a fraternity guy, and the house that the internship program rented out was the one that I lived in. And I had made arrangements with the house mom to be one of the staff on hand
For the summer. Myra. Oh, Myra. Wow, I haven't heard that name in a long time.
Myra, the house
So
mom.
I was on staff. I was a cook and a cleaner and a picker-upper guy and odds and ends guy. I basically did whatever it was with a couple other guys from the house as well. And we had free room and board, and I got paid a little stipend.
So here I fly out to Boulder because I was the last student chosen. I was also the last one to arrive, just with the logistics of flights and whatnot. And so I come into this fraternity house and, like, great. We've got meals. So I don't have to worry about cooking or anything like that. And I like to joke that I knew Tony could cook before we ever started to date, although his scrambled eggs were not good when we first met.
Well, I was the breakfast cook, and I was also cooking for, 40 of us?
Yeah.
I think it was
well,
40
there were
of us.
No, because there were 20, maybe 30.
Okay.
30, I think.
Okay. Well, I was cooking for a fairly large group, and that was also the summer that I had turned 21.
Details.
Yes. So
So what are you saying? You weren't exactly sober in the morning when you were making our breakfast?
there were some mornings I wasn't sober at all. I remember waking up actually getting home at 3 a.m. and waking up at 6:30 a.m. to have breakfast ready by 7 a.m.
There you go.
Yeah, it wasn't fun.
There you go. So that was also the summer, for those of you that are traveling back in time with us, that was the summer of World Cup soccer.
Mm-hmm.
Was that played here in 2000? I don't remember where it was.
2000, you're talking 1990.
1996. Anyway, I don't remember where it was played, but we watched a lot of soccer that summer. And it was also the summer of the whole O.J. Simpson.
Right.
I remember watching the white Suburban traveling, it was
That's
like all
so
that we
cute.
could see,
Right.
or Explorer, whatever the white SUV was. And so that's really where you and I met.
Was in front of the TV
Was in front of the TV.
Soccer.
Great, auspicious beginning. And, it really just kind of started out as, hey, we're hanging out. I didn't always have to be in the lab. I didn't have, my responsibilities at the beginning of the summer were not that
Grueling.
rigorous as we were gearing up for research. And so I spent a lot of time watching soccer and hanging out with this guy who I have to describe Tony for you going back 16 years. Total Boulder college student. He had, shaved head, little wire rim glasses, big bushy goatee, and was always in his red Merrill hiking boots. We actually dug out a picture because I was like, I know what color they were. And, shorts, and he usually had his samples t-shirt on.
Which was the hot band from Boulder at the time.
In fact, it was funny as we were preparing for this podcast, I was digging out old pictures and saw him, there was a picture of him the night that he got his sample CD autographed, and he's just doing this big, like high five to the crowd type of thing. And
we're going to have those pictures available for you. Just click the link above this, and you'll see some photos of us from back then.
So we met early June because I came out just a couple days after your birthday.
Yeah.
I think like 3 or 4 days after your birthday is when I arrived.
Mm-hmm.
And we just started hanging out. We would have these, friendly conversations. I didn't really know, I guess, at the time that we were supposed to, like you guys had permission to.
Well, we had been, the year prior, I had also served in the house, cooking and everything. And that year, we weren't really interacting with the interns. And for this summer, we had been asked by the directors to interact with the interns. They just wanted more of a coherent or cohesive group. And with 3 or 4 of us guys around, there was going to be interaction.
Lucky for me.
Lucky for you.
Lucky for me. So we started hanging out, and I don't even know how we got to the point that you threw me my birthday party.
I have no. All I know is it was the summer that I turned 21, and I was drinking a lot. So every night, I just remember going out and partying because I knew what every special was at every bar, pretty much every night. I mean, it was a summer of partying for me. And when we met, it was just sort of like, hey, what's happening? Cool. I'm partying. I'm 21, and it's Boulder, and it's summer, and I am just going to have a great time. And I remember us getting to know each other early on and just hanging out. And we would have these really cool talks, and we'd go walking around campus, and we'd go get an ice cream, or we'd go hang out at one of the local coffee shops. Or I remember us also going hiking up at the Flatiron Chautauqua Park, and just doing these really cool things together and walking. And so as we were developing this relationship, this cool friendship, and we weren't holding hands or anything at the time. I don't recall, but we were just having a good time. I could definitely sense that there was a connection happening.
However, there was that whole thing about holding hands. I think that probably didn't happen because you had a girlfriend, and I knew you had a girlfriend.
Yeah, but we were sort of on the outs.
Not so out that I didn't know about her.
True.
Okay.
That's probably why we didn't hold hands.
That's probably why we didn't hold hands. I'm thinking that's probably why. Even though I definitely was attracted to you, there was that whole girlfriend issue.
Right.
And
so as your birthday was coming about at the end of June, I was just sort of, I was at the end with the other girl, and I was like, you know what? Alisa's been cool over the last couple of weeks. Let's throw her a party. Some of my buddies had a house off campus, and we got a keg. We invited everybody from the house, a bunch of the guys and gals that we knew or that I knew that were staying for the summer. And we just had an awesome, awesome party.
Yes. And for those of you that are doing the math, that was my 20th birthday. So I did have a kegger for my 20th birthday party. But that was also a very significant night in our relationship because, well, actually it wasn't a relationship then. It was just a significant night in our friendship, I guess you could say.
In our courtship.
Well, I wouldn't even go courtship at that point in time. We'd known each other for 2.5 weeks.
Yeah. What do you call that then? I mean, what do you call that when you just...
We were friends.
Yeah.
We were friends. But you kissed me that night.
Yeah, you kissed me, if I can remember correctly.
No, I was standing in the kitchen and you moved in and kissed me.
Okay.
Maybe that was a birthday present. I'm not really sure. But you kissed me first.
I was thinking the keg was a birthday present.
You would have that summer.
Yes.
That would have been the logical gift.
Sure thing.
Yeah. And so I remember running out and telling all the girls, oh my gosh, we kissed. And there
were some fireworks.
It was definitely, lit up my night.
Mm-hmm. So, I remember after that kiss knowing that I had a breakup with the current girlfriend.
Well, that was a good thing.
Yeah.
It still took you a little while.
Yes, it did.
It did.
But I knew I had to.
Okay. Well, at least you were moving in the right direction.
Right.
You were 21 and partying all the time. I'll cut you a little slack, 16 years later. But then we had our first date. So we'd already had our first kiss, and then you asked me out.
On a date.
You asked me out on a date, which considering, there were 20 of us living in this fraternity house for the summer. I think it was probably about half and half, guys and gals. And I was the only one actually going out on a date. And so two of my girlfriends that summer, Ellen and Reva, decided that I was going to be the project that night of our first date. And they spent easily 2 hours on hair and makeup. I don't even know what took them so long.
I don't know either. All I remember was sitting in my room with a 6-pack of Samuel Adams Boston Lager waiting.
Yeah, which led to the other funny events that night. So we finally, I finally come down the stairs. And
you looked very beautiful.
And we have pictures. The pictures are horrible. They'll be up on the website.
Yeah, this is pre-digital.
Yeah.
And they were just,
bad flash, bad eyes. You didn't know because you'd already taken the picture.
Gosh, they were bad pictures. But
they're history.
Yes.
So we've got them. So we went and walked down because Tony was in no condition to drive
after
waiting for me.
Yeah. And where we were going to go, I wasn't going to drive anyways. I just knew better.
So we walked to this great little Chinese restaurant called First Walk. It sits right along Boulder Creek. I don't even know.
It did.
It did. It's no longer there.
It's long gone.
Kind of like Josh and John's, my favorite ice cream spot.
Yes.
And so Tony orders a flaming volcano to drink, which is this big trough type thing of alcohol, and they light the middle and voila, flaming.
Voila, it's flaming.
And he orders a poo-poo platter.
Mm-hmm.
For appetizers. And they're like, oh, that's nice. And so the poo-poo platter comes and Tony picks up a spring roll. And this is a bit of foreshadowing that at the beginning what your history or what your future is going to be like because some of their behavior. So Tony picks up this incredibly hot spring roll. And, it's so hot he can't even he takes it. You can't hold it.
I grabbed it. It was super hot. My senses were
impaired.
I grabbed it. I was like, oh my gosh, it's hot. And I'm thinking this in my head. I'm like, oh my gosh. So I dropped it, and I just saw it. I was like, okay, it's going to hit the plate, and that's cool. It's great. It'll hit the plate. I'll just sort of wipe it off like, it's funny. But when it hit the plate, it had so much bounce, it jumped off my plate and onto the floor.
It jumped off like it had a mind of its own.
Well, there's so much force, and all you engineers can tell me if it's force or velocity or whatever it is, but it hit pretty darn hard, jumped off my plate onto the ground.
And we were eating outside on an outdoor patio in Boulder, Colorado, and he then proceeds to pick it up off the ground.
Yes.
Blow off whatever dirt may have accumulated in the easily 10 seconds it took him to register that it was on the ground and he needed to pick it up, and then eat this spring roll.
It off.
You blew off the dirt.
There you go.
Which at the time I thought was really hysterical, and it's made for a great story for the last 16 years. But there have definitely been times over the last 16 years where you're like, 5-second rule.
And what do you think then?
I think I saw it at the beginning.
And I think you get upset at times too.
No, we have a 5-second rule in our house.
Yeah, I think there are times when you look at me a little cross-eyed, like, what are you doing?
Well, yeah. Okay. I probably looked at you cross-eyed then too.
Right.
Things haven't changed.
No, they haven't. I think that's a good point to make is, what you and I both knew what we were getting into from the get-go. Mm-hmm. And not to say it's been easy since then, but it's great to look back and laugh and realize that we've married the person that we met way back when.
Right.
I
mean, there's definitely been some growing up over the years, but it was, some of those behaviors have been the same for the last 16 years. And no matter if I look at you cross-eyed or if I get irritated by them, they're not changing.
Nope.
They're not changing. It's just like me being a messy person.
Right. I can't change you.
You can't. That's not going anywhere. You could have asked my mother. She had to deal with it until I moved in with you. So, but so that really kind of kicked off the romance, the dating,
the dating part.
I will call it dating. It was not.
I had already broken up with the girl at that point.
By the time we had our first date?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, I know for sure. Doesn't mean I didn't go see her after that first date, but I had broken up with her.
Oh, okay. Great. I always love this part of the story. It's the part that makes me go, oh, and roll my eyes.
Yeah. I wasn't smart.
No. So that was probably the end of June. I'm thinking. And then I remember 4th of July, we went and saw the fireworks at CU at the Boulder. What is the Folsom Field? I'm like, what's the
that's
stadium
right. We did go see him at Folsom Field. Yeah.
I'm like, where the Buffaloes play. And so at this point in time, we're just thinking it's going to be a summer fling. I mean, the reality is that I was going back to DePauw in August.
Yep.
It was my senior year. It wasn't like I was going to fall in love with some guy and totally change my future.
Right.
Little did I know what was in store for me, but I was definitely going back to finish my senior year at DePauw. And so we're like, well, this will be fun to hang out
for the summer and just have a good time.
See what happens, hang out, if it doesn't last, no big deal. If it does, great. And, we'll see where that takes us. And so it really, it didn't take us long to become intimate with one another.
Yeah.
I mean, it was probably from my birthday. From my birthday until the first time we had sex was probably about 2 weeks.
It was. And this is a little tough to bring up.
This is a lot tough to bring up.
Yeah. And I think we just need to let our listeners know that, man, we've struggled with this, talking about us having sex before marriage because of where we stand now. And, we've had a lot of discussions because obviously we have our parents and a lot of our friends and other family members who've listened to us talk for the last 10 episodes. And to talk about having sex or making love now as a married couple, that is very easy for us to talk about because it's who we are and it's what we do. We have 2 kids. People can sort of figure out we did something and we have 2 kids. So to let everybody know, this has been a big discussion that we've had for a couple of days now to actually bring this up. But in all honesty, our whole thing about podcasting is being transparent and real to you guys. And so us having sex very shortly after after Alisa's birthday and having that first kiss is something we look back on and just go, wow, especially since we have kids now.
Yeah, it's, when we brought up the subject of this podcast and you were talking through it, and, like Tony said, we're married, we have children. People know that we've had sex. We obviously talk about it quite a bit.
In our first episode.
But to admit that we had sex before marriage, having children now, it's a conversation that I know at some point in time we're probably going to have with them. And while I can't keep them from making a different decision, I feel very strongly that I wish we'd made different choices. Mm-hmm. I wish we had waited and had that moment on our wedding night, that it was, the first time for us. And that wasn't a gift that we were able to give to each other. And
in all honesty, though, I think the wedding night is overblown, but we'll talk about that on another day.
Okay. Regardless of your feelings on the wedding night itself.
Yes. No, I understand.
The gift of giving oneself from that moment on, after the commitment has been made, right, is something that we weren't able to do for each other. And, it's something that I think we've had to prove to each other since then. We've had to build that commitment because we had already jumped into a sexual relationship very, very early on.
Right.
And, that was how, it wasn't like we had sex all the time that summer, but that was definitely a large component of our relationship that summer. Mm-hmm. And, it definitely started to impact my feelings as I was getting ready to leave.
Well, let's talk about all the fun times that we had before.
Okay. That's true. I did kind of jump to the end.
You're jumping to the end.
It was a great summer.
It was.
We took trips all over Colorado. We went to, I remember drives up Left Hand Canyon and out to Golden. And did we go to Dillon that summer?
I think we did.
I think we did go to Dillon that summer.
Yeah, we did.
I met up with the Daroons. And
there are a lot of late nights. And this is one of those things where us being sexually intimate with each other and me having just turned 21 and drinking. I can still remember one night in particular where I rolled in at like 3 a.m. I remember knocking at your door, waking you up, mm-hmm, and I was sitting on your bed. And I was pretty darn drunk. And I remember just sitting there, and you had put your hand on my back, and you're going, Tony, what's all over you? And I'm thinking, I don't know. I'm just hanging out. I just wanted to see you. And we turn on the light, and there's bark all up and down my back.
Oh, you had bark and leaves and grass.
I was such a mess back then. I had come out of a bar, passed out in some flower bed, have no idea how late it was or what had happened, but I honestly had gone up and walked back, mm-hmm, to the house, found your room somehow. And I
wonder how many rooms you knocked on before you found mine.
I have no clue either. And, just passed out.
Right.
And that was, the drinking, I know, began to wear on you as that summer progressed as well, though.
Right. Oh, definitely. And partly because I wasn't 21 and, and I, in some respects, still had kind of that good girl mentality in terms of, well, I'm not going to try and get into a bar if I'm not 20. I don't want to have the legal repercussions of, trying to underage drinking and all that kind of stuff. And so I wouldn't go out with you.
Right.
And so you were really, we weren't to the point where I felt like I had, even though we were having sex, I didn't feel like I had that influence over your life to say, I think you're going too far.
Right.
I think this is getting a little out of hand. I'm like, you turned 21, we're hanging out, I'm doing my thing with my girlfriends in the house, and he's doing his thing, and, we hang out when he's able to, when he doesn't have to work, we'll do, late night runs to Taco Bell, and, we were still developing, our relationship was still really young, and we spent a lot of time talking to each other, on those drives and, over, hiking around Boulder and doing all this kind of stuff. And so the foundation was definitely being laid but there were some things early on that were out of balance.
Yeah.
And, surprisingly enough, we didn't end up as a statistic in terms of having premarital sex and, all of the chances,
baggage that
all of
comes
the
with
baggage
it. Yeah.
and the chances for us breaking up, or the likelihood that we should have broken up, pretty high, given that, only 8 or 10 weeks after meeting each other, I was getting ready to head back to Indiana.
Yeah.
And we didn't know we were going to try the long distance thing. We just knew that we were going to talk that night. That's kind of how we left it. And as the summer started to close, I knew that my feelings were getting stronger. You were more guarded.
I was, because I had always looked at that summer from the get-go as this is just a summer fling. I'm going to have a great time with Alisa. We are going to just enjoy the summer.
Mm-hmm.
Sort of like the summer of 69, except it was the summer of 96. 94.
Close.
94.
Summer of 96 was the summer before we got married.
That's right. My bad.
So we come to that last day, and you decide to take me to the airport.
Yep.
And you never took off your glasses, your sunglasses, the entire time we were in the airport.
I didn't.
You want to tell our listeners why?
Because I was sad to see you leave. I was. It finally hit me when we were going to the airport that I wasn't going to see you tomorrow. And it really hit me. And I was like, oh my gosh, I really have a bond with this woman that I've never had with any other girlfriend I've ever dated before. And so I was very guarded because I didn't know what to expect.
Mm-hmm.
And I was really sad to see you leave. And again, with you going back to Indiana and me hanging out in Boulder, I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know if we would do a long distance thing, if we were even ready for that. Part of me was just going to miss having sex.
Spoken like an honest man.
True. But True. I mean that's a component of it, but there were really deep feelings that I had for you
mm-hmm.
at that point in time. And so I didn't want to give everything away. I didn't want to, put the cards all out, show them all at once, because then I knew you would be like, I got them. And I didn't want to be in that situation either.
Well, and also for me, I mean, I think, all of us know long distance relationships that haven't worked out. And
especially in college.
When
you're going through college, we both saw numerous friends go through long distance relationships that didn't work.
Right. And I was going back to a very small school. DePauw had about 2,000, maybe 2,500 students at the time that I was there. And, very much everybody knows everybody type of environment. So, I had a lot of guy friends that I was, going back to, and guys that I had casually, hooked up with over my college career. And I was going, it was a party atmosphere.
And casually hooking up at DePauw's kissing.
Yes.
Just heads up.
They call it the mash and dash, or at least they used to. And, that was the environment I was going back to. And I didn't, because Tony was guarded, I didn't know if we had gotten to the point where we're like, all right, well, are we exclusive? I mean, what are we trying to do when we're going to be, 1,600 miles away, or 2,000, whatever it was. And so I remember going home that night. My parents took me out to dinner, and all I could talk about was Tony. And I remember my dad looking at me like, what happened to you out there? We sent you out to do the science internship, and I don't think we've heard the first word about your research, but we know a lot about this guy, Tony. And I remember, coming home from dinner that night and calling you up and being like, oh, please answer the phone. I just want to hear your voice. Please answer the phone. And just hearing your voice that night, that first night that I was gone, I was like, oh, I really miss you. Yeah. And then, I think I went back to DePauw that weekend. And I remember talking to you probably about a week later. I mean, we got to the point where we were talking every day. And that was part of our debt that we had to pay off years later, as we, no cell phones. We were pre-cell phone dating. And I remember you telling me the story about how you were talking to one of your friends about your girlfriend. And you had never told me or asked me or called me your girlfriend before. And so I remember sitting there thinking, who is he talking about? And why is he talking to me about some other girlfriend? I started to almost get defensive And I'm like, what are you talking about? And I remember you saying, well, I'd like to call you my girlfriend. And I'm like, oh, okay. We've now had that conversation. We're having that conversation. And what does this mean, being long distance at two party schools, or at least they were party schools back then. I know they're dry campuses to some extent now. But how do we work this out? And, just the logistics of being in school and, being 2-hour time difference. And there were just a lot of cards stacked against us, I think. And I remember you saying a couple weeks later, I want you to come out to Boulder and see me. And I'm thinking, one part of me said, I really, really want to go see you again. Like, right. I've missed you so much. I cannot wait to see you. And then the other part of my brain said, but what if it's different? What if there's no connection? I mean, what if I see him again and it's just like, what did I ever see in you?
Well, yeah. And do you remember what I told you? I said, come out. If that happens, we'll have a great weekend together and we'll call it done.
Yeah, and that didn't sound so good to me. I
understand. I know. But do you remember that's the way I got you to come to Colorado was I just said, let's just go out and let's have a good weekend. And if at the end of the weekend we just decide that, hey, it was a summer fling and it was fun and we just don't see this working out, then we'll go our own separate ways. Fortunately, that weekend was a blast. We hung out at Winter Park.
Yeah,
we had an awesome little townhouse condo that we got, and we just had a blast that whole weekend, just hanging out in the high country of Colorado, hiking and talking and laughing and having a lot of sex, and it was just a fun trip.
Right.
And from there, we've continued to grow. And man, looking back at that time and where we are today, it's a huge, huge change.
Oh, yeah.
It's just fun to look back and just realize, wow, where did we come from? And to realize how much we have endured and how much we've had to give and take throughout our courtship and engagement and the early years of our marriage and even to where we are today. But looking back, it always puts a smile on my face to just think of those early days of us together.
Yeah. I mean, it's a little mind-blowing to me sometimes, when I hear, about couples that, there are so many factors working against couples surviving, in terms of, you're in these environments that, they're alcohol and especially at the college scene, opposite sex and alcohol, things that really can tear into a relationship. And we saw it happen. And so the fact that we even made it through that year together, still kind of baffles, it still blows my mind. And that we've gone so far to the point where we're now coaching couples on marriage and relationships. And, at the point where we are comfortable, even though this was not an easy conversation, an easy podcast for me to record, because there is that part of me that says, ooh, I don't necessarily know that I want people to know that we had sex in our 20s, before we were married. That was something that I really wrestled with. And yet to say, you know what, we coach people on being transparent with each other. Mm-hmm. And so it's very important that we are transparent with you, our listeners. And, we want you to know that we've done a lot of things wrong. We haven't always made the best choices, but what we've been able to do is to learn from those choices, to correct our mistakes, and to say, you know what, I am making a future with you.
Yep.
We chose each other. We chose and committed to making a future together. And so that means there are times we have to work a lot harder because we've made poor choices.
Right.
But the reality is that, on October 5th, 1996, I told God, family, and the world that I do to Tony, for better or for worse, whatever that entails. And so,
And then in October 2000, we committed our lives to Christ.
We actually were baptized July of 2001.
Yeah, but we committed ourselves when we walked into Saddleback Church.
Yeah, but I don't think we did that till like December.
Are you sure?
You had just come back from the trail. We hadn't even bought our place in Rancho Santa Margarita yet.
Okay.
Details. More on that later. Future podcasts. But really, you know, as we wrap this one up, and this is just kind of a little taste of the beginning of where we came from, how we met, the chance of us even meeting, you know, definitely out of our control. But, you know, I see as we look back 16 years, all of these instances where things weren't in our control, but they've definitely worked for a bigger plan.
Yep.
You know, we want you to know that if you guys are wrestling with some of the issues that we brought up tonight, you know, I mean, we talked a little bit about Tony's alcohol, excessive alcohol drinking, alcohol use. You know, we've talked about the premarital sex and, you know, some of the stress that can bring to a relationship. You know, we want you to know that we're here for you as marriage coaches. You know, we work individually or as a couple. You know, whatever your needs are, you know, if you just want to work on something with yourself, or if you and your spouse want to work on something together with one of us, we are here. You can check out our coaching page and contact us for more information. And I really, before we wrap up, just want to tell you guys something new that we're doing this week. Well, that we're starting. It'll actually start April, whatever the first Monday in April is. I think it's the 5th. We are going to be doing Marriage Minute Mondays. And this is one of Tony's babies. So I'm going to let him tell you all what we're going to be doing.
All right. So Marriage Minute Mondays is going to be a 1-minute video of either Alisa or I giving you guys a quick tip on marriage and something that you guys can do throughout the week. So it may be as little as leaving love notes. It may be, you know, making it a point to be physically touch your spouse, not sexually per se, but put your arm around them, hold their hand. And we're going to do these every Monday. We're going to release them every Monday. But to get them, you need to go to our website at oneextraordinarymarriage.com and fill out the form on the right-hand side. And you'll see it says Marriage Minute Monday. Put in your name, put in your email, and every Monday we'll get one in your email box.
So we're very excited about this. We had a lot of fun just recording even the introductory video. I think it took us 32 takes, 37. Yes. I don't know. We talked about it earlier. But we look forward to you building the community with us through the Marriage Minute Mondays. You know, it's something that's easy to get your friends to come on board and say, hey, you know, check out this couple. It's 1 minute. Surely you can spare a minute. You know, We all know everybody's busy and we don't want you to get, you know, bogged down with really lengthy stuff. So we're hoping that you'll check out our website at oneextraordinarymarriage.com. You can also check out our Facebook fan page or follow us on Twitter. Or Tony is at OneOnFire and I'm at Alisa DiLorenzo on Twitter. You can also email us at askalisa@oneextraordinarymarriage.com
or asktony@oneextraordinarymarriage.com.
So thank you as we wrap this up. Thank you for listening through this more difficult conversation to have today. It's not easy to talk about the mistakes that you made or choices that you would make differently. Mm-hmm. And so we just appreciate your support when we do bring up those topics.
Yep.
So until next week.
Love you guys.